Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israel top leaders visiting the border with Lebanon amid concerns of a potential war, and Israel working out roadblocks for getting weapons from the United States. Plus, is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu changing his position on a Palestinian state? An historic showdown tonight as President Biden squares off with former President Donald Trump for the earliest debate in history. We're going to take a look at the expectations for both candidates and two separate threats against Israel. We're going to hear from Bishop Robert Stearns about the dangers they could pose to the Jewish state and the Judeo-Christian way of life. All those stories and more ahead today, right here on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We're going to begin this half hour in Israel, where top leaders have visited the border with Lebanon amid concerns a full-scale war could break out with Hezbollah. At the same time, Israel is working with the United States to make sure it gets the weapons it needs. And is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu changing his view on a Palestinian state? That question being raised today. CBN's Paul Strand brings us a look at these key developments from Jerusalem.
In Washington, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant reportedly is making progress with U.S. officials to speed up shipments of weapons from the U.S. to Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu accused the Biden administration of deliberately slow-walking such shipments, and the U.S. is admitting there have been bottlenecks in the process. However, the administration is emphasizing its support of the Jewish state. One official told the Washington Post the U.S. has provided $6.5 billion in security assistance since October 7th, $3 billion in May alone. Gallant says Israel needs the U.S. by its side.
The powerful and enduring bond between the United States and Israel is key to our nation's strategy and our security.
In a visit with Netanyahu in Jerusalem, Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania pledged his support for the Jewish nation.
We stand with Israel through this, and I'm so sorry for what's been done to this nation.
Fetterman has been a strong advocate of Israel, while others in his party have wavered. In fact, many Democrats signaling they might boycott Netanyahu's speech to Congress next month. Israeli media reports that Netanyahu will present a new position on Palestinian statehood in his speech, but the details are unclear. Netanyahu has long been against the idea, and his office released a statement that he opposes a Palestinian state and will not change his position. Palestinians themselves don't favor a state alongside Israel. Itamar Marcus of Palestinian Media Watch points out the vast majority of Palestinians hail the murderous attack of October 7th.
There's tremendous support within the West Bank for what happened on October 7th. There was a poll taken a month and a half after October 7th, at which time, everybody knew what happened. Everybody knew about the rape and the destruction and the massacres. Palestinians were asked, is everything that's happened up till now, does it make you proud as a Palestinian? And 98% of Palestinians said it made them proud.
On another front, Netanyahu and Israel's president toured the northern border with Lebanon this week. That's where all-out war may soon come as the IDF seeks to end daily attacks from Hezbollah on Israeli communities along the border. Turkey's president says his nation will stand with Hezbollah if it comes to war, and he's condemning Western nations for backing Israel. Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is joining us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, let's start with the potential war with Hezbollah. Tell us about what the Israeli President Isaac Herzog said after he visited the border with Lebanon, where Hezbollah has been launching these attacks.
Well, Ephraim, he's saying that he's warning the international community not to be surprised if the situation in the north, quote, spirals out of control. Herzog is saying that really nothing has been done for the security of those northern residents that have had to leave. There's about 100,000 Israelis that are internally displaced in their own country. Many of them here in Jerusalem that have been staying in some of the hotels here in the city for months. There's about 43 abandoned communities along the Israeli-Lebanese border. Herzog noted that many of these small businesses in those communities are collapsing. He also visited Metula. If you've ever been here, Ephraim, or anybody that's listening, Metula is about far north as you can go, and it's right on the Lebanese border. That community has been abandoned. It's heavily damaged. basically a sitting duck there in the border. But Herzog pledged that when the war's over, that it would be rebuilt. The big question, overseeing all of Israel right now is what's going on in the northern border and when there's going to be a major confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah.
What about those families who've been evacuated from the north? What can you tell us?
Well, there's one example here in Jerusalem. Some of those residents in the north are being asked to return. There's several communities that the government says that is outside the 3.5 kilometer mandatory evacuation zone. The government is saying some of these communities are like 3.7 kilometers. These represent 15 families, about 200 people. There's an organization here called FIRM, Fellowship of Israel-Related Ministries, that has supported some of these families since the beginning of the war. And it's a nonprofit organization that connects Christians around the world to help the people of Israel. They've appealed to the Supreme Court and to the government for a solution because many of these people are elderly, single moms, disabled. They're traumatized and they don't want to go back to a war zone. But we'll see what happens when what the Supreme Court says, or the government.
All right. What do we know about Netanyahu's supposed change of view on a Palestinian state?
Well, Ephraim, I think he's really trying to thread the diplomatic needle right now. His speech reportedly will include elements of President Biden's vision for the Middle East, and that would include normalization of relations with Saudi Arabia, and then recognizing some sort of autonomy for Palestinians short of a state. At least that's been reporting. But as we saw in Paul's report, the Prime Minister's office is saying Netanyahu opposes any Palestinian state, and he won't change his position in an address to the Congress. And I would add, Ephraim, there's an overwhelming majority of Israelis that are opposed to a Palestinian state after October 7th. And you also saw in Itamar Marcus in Paul's report saying the overwhelming majority of Palestinians, they support what happened on October 7th. And I would just add one other thing. Former U.S. Ambassador David Friedman to Israel, he has his own plan, and many people are looking to that as a possible solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Chris, are there now new concerns of potential attacks against Israel from the West Bank?
There are, and ever since October 7th, there were concerns about how the West Bank may destabilize the situation. While most of the IDF and the focus was on the war with Hamas, as well as what's going on in the northern border. What Iran is trying to do is trying to destabilize the West Bank, which is Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland of Israel, and also Jordan. Many of these weapons that are coming in to the West Bank are coming in through Jordan. And now there's reports of Iran smuggling rockets into the West Bank. Some say at the current rate, they could fire rockets into parts of Israel in a year. That would represent an exponential rise in the kind of threat from the West Bank. And these would include Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad with Iranian backing. Right now, they're crude rockets. Someone described them like someone building it in their backyard. But it all shows to see what Iran is trying to do in efforts to destabilize the West Bank and to overthrow Jordan.
So in light of that, is Israel picking up its focus on the nuclear threat from Iran?
Very much so. Netanyahu restarted working groups on Iran's nuclear program that would include agencies like the Mossad and the Shin Bet. They note that Iran's nuclear program is advancing. They're on the brink of a nuclear weapon. They've tripled or quadrupled its uranium enrichment at Fordo. That's one of their main uranium enrichment facilities. The IAEA that monitors Iran's nuclear program says these have no credible civilian justification. And Netanyahu, to just reinforce his opposition to Iran's nuclear program, says, at any cost and in any way, we will thwart Iran's intention to destroy Israel.
All right, Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem, thanks. As always, good to have you back. We encourage you to stay safe and know that many people here are praying for you and our entire team there in Israel. Coming up, we're going to have more about the threats to Israel and the Judeo-Christian way of life. But first, a look at the historic debate tonight between the current president, President Joe Biden, and the former president, Donald Trump, and the expectations for both candidates. We've got the story for you when we come back.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
History is being made on multiple fronts as the first debate of the 2024 presidential race comes to Atlanta. High expectations and new debate rules leave little room for error. CBN's Brody Carter reports on all the moving parts ahead of tonight.
For the first time in U.S. history, a sitting president and a former president will go head-to-head in a presidential debate. It's also the earliest debate in modern history, well ahead of the traditional fall schedule.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely not true. You're going to have true, gentlemen.
There's also a new set of rules to avoid chaotic scenes from the past. CBN's George Thomas explains from Atlanta.
The debate happening here at CNN in downtown Atlanta will look and sound very different from previous debates. The primetime studio event will have no live audience, no opening statements, and the most unique rule, each candidate's microphone will be turned off unless he is directed to speak.
Performance on the debate stage might be the most important aspect for the 81-year-old Biden, as Republicans highlight his age and mental health.
Which Joe Biden's going to show up? Look, my summary is this. It doesn't matter if he drinks a whole gallon of energy drinks. He's not going to be able to match the acumen and the readiness of Donald Trump.
While Biden will point to Trump's 30 convictions, a first for a presidential candidate, and other pending criminal cases.
There actually might be more risk for Trump heading into this debate than there is for Biden because of the expectations.
Political analyst Nathan Gonzalez tells CBN News because Republicans have made the president out to be too old and incompetent, he sees the real challenge residing with Donald Trump.
Trump is used to feeding off of a crowd and feeding off the energy in the room, and that's just not going to be there. Trump is going to have to be a little more disciplined when it comes to time and whether his microphone is turned on or off, and try to avoid being looked at as a bully.
As to the issues, Biden is expected to hammer the abortion issue after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade thanks to 3 Trump appointees. Trump no doubt will highlight the flood of unchecked migrants on the U.S. southern border and high inflation. President Biden has been preparing for the debate at Camp David over the past several days. Former President Trump has been on the campaign trail, and last night he attended a prayer conference call with members of a faith advisory board. A Real Clear Politics polling average shows Trump just 1 point ahead as we inch closer to tonight. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, 2 separate but powerful threats to Israel and the Jewish people throughout the world. Bishop Robert Stearns brings us a warning about the dangers posed by these threats, and we're going to hear from him right after this. Israel and the West Bank are facing a new significant risk. Both the Jewish state and the Judeo-Christian way of life are under an essential threat from 2 powerful forces. Bishop Robert Stearns warns about the collusion of militant secularism and radical Islam in the latest episode of The Global Lane on the CBN News channel. He warns this new development poses a grave danger to both the state of Israel and Jewish people across the globe.
Every time we look at history, we see that what starts with the Jews does not end with the Jews. They call Israel the little Satan. They call America and the West the big Satan.
It's not just Iran that says that.
Absolutely not. Iran sends its message of hate and vitriol and jihad and genocide all throughout the world. And we see alliances with Qatar. We see Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, all of this evil encroaching upon this tiny Jewish state.
And we've seen this rising anti-Semitism on our college campuses, and even the White House is lukewarm in the relationship with Israel, maybe at times even hostile. So what's happening? How has that happened?
Well, it's happened because the church has bought into something called replacement theology that essentially says that God's covenant with Israel is over. God's done with the Jews, and the church is the new Israel. The church is the new Jews. Well, that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible tells us clearly in the book of Romans that Christians have been grafted into God's covenant with the Jewish people, and that God's covenant with Abraham endures. God says, as long as the sun and moon are in place, this is how strong my covenant is. Last time I checked, the sun and the moon are still lighting up our world. And so when we begin to assault the character of God, which is what replacement theology is. Replacement theology is an assault on the character of God. It's saying, God, you don't keep your promises. You don't keep your covenants. When you do that, you chip away at the foundation of our faith. And the foundation of America and the West is our Judeo-Christian worldview.
So it's really a spiritual battle right now that we're in.
Absolutely. You know, in the late 30s, as Hitler rose to power in Germany, before Nazism took a hold, there was a courageous pastor named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Mm-hmm. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer went to the 18,000 churches in Germany. There were 18,000 churches as Hitler rose to power. And he appealed to those churches to stand against this rising tide of evil. Tragically, only 3,000 churches stood with Bonhoeffer. 15,000 churches, some of them actually sided with Hitler, but the majority of them, 12,000 churches, said, we can't get involved politically. This is outside our realm of spiritual discourse. And what happened was the tragedy of Nazi Germany, the tragedy of the Holocaust. How many lives were lost? How many human lives were lost?
Is it being repeated now?
I am sobered to say, I believe we're in a Bonhoeffer moment. And if the church does not wake up, I believe it will be too late.
And you've always said it's not just enough to pray. We can pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We need to get actively involved. How can we get involved?
We can get involved in several ways. Prayer is the beginning point, and I don't want to underestimate the power of prayer. It's powerful, it's crucial. But the second thing is you have to get educated. You have to understand what happened in 1948. What happened in 1967? What are all of these wars that Israel has faced? The reality is Israel's been at war since 48. I mean, there's a brief respite here and a brief, pause there, but attack after attack. Why? This isn't about the creation of a Palestinian state. Israel has offered a two-state solution over and over and over again.
I always tell people Gaza was a two-state. They had their own administration for 20 years.
I was with Prime Minister Sharon in his office about 6 weeks before he made that decision to withdraw from Gaza, and we were discussing that momentous decision. Gaza could have become, the Singapore of the Middle East. It could have become a beautiful, flourishing city. What happened?
Billions for tunnels.
Billions for tunnels.
And rockets.
Not to build schools, not to build up a society. And so what happens is we interpret that Middle East situation through a Western lens. And we say, well, surely all Hamas wants is peace. No, Hamas doesn't want peace. Hamas wants the genocide of the Jewish people, the obliteration of the state of Israel.
Okay, the book is Rise and Rebuild, A Guide to Overcoming Adversity. Bishop Robert Stearns, thank you for being with us.
It's great to be with you today. Thank you,
Appreciate
brother.
you being here in Virginia Beach.
An honor.
Also on this week's episode of The Global Lane, remembering the ISIS siege against Iraqi Christians 10 years ago, and the immigrant combat veteran who hopes to unseat a former vice presidential candidate in a key election this year. You can see it all on The Global Lane this evening on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app, or you can watch it on YouTube. Coming up, two remarkable women. One working at the polls during this election at 100 years old. The other getting her college degree at 105. We're going to bring those stories to you when we come back.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
And finally today, a 100-year-old Florida woman is continuing her legacy of greeting voters with a smile. Marie Esch first cast her vote for president around 1948. Since then, she's been a part of the election process in a different way, volunteering as a poll worker for the last 25 years. Marie turned 100 in February, but she still drives and does crossword puzzles to stay sharp. No matter how divided the political landscape, Marie greets everyone with a friendly smile that's been her way for a century and still counting. And a special collegiate graduation, 80 years in the making. Virginia Jenny Hislop almost completed her master's thesis when she left school to care for her family during World War II. Since then, the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University dropped their thesis requirement, meaning at 105 years old, Hislop finally earned her master's degree. So Hislop recently received her diploma, saying, "I've waited a long time for this." Congratulations to her. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I want to leave you with this prayer of gratitude. God, I look to you in the middle of my mess, knowing that you are a very present help in time of trouble. Thank you. You are my refuge. You are my strength. You cover me. You shield me. You are closer than any other. And to that prayer, may we all agree and say amen. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online. That's cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And, of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, X, or Instagram. See you back here same time tomorrow. Have a great day.